It began, metaphorically speaking, with a slap. I came home from a weekend camping trip, sunburned and content, only to find a fluorescent orange HOA notice plastered to my front door. Not in the mailbox, not slipped under the mat, but taped there like a neon wanted poster. Bold letters screamed, "Violation, excessive plant growth. Immediate fine issued." Below, a $500 fine was stamped in red, a warning from some petty authoritarian regime. And there it was, her signature, Brenda, HOA president, supreme commander of all things beige. It felt like she'd been lurking, waiting for me to turn my back. I stood on my porch, surrounded by my carefully nurtured flower beds, herbs, vines, and potted citrus trees, and felt my blood pressure spike. $500? For having too many plants? For making my yard look alive in a sea of cookie-cutter lawns? This wasn't just petty, this was war. Let me back up. My name's Leo. I moved into this neighborhood 3 years ago and immediately set out to transform my bland, regulation-approved lawn into something vibrant. I wasn't breaking any rules, or so I thought. I never blocked sidewalks, never let things get overgrown. I just loved plants. I had succulents by the windows, rosemary lining the walkway, a small vertical garden against my garage, and a tiny herb spiral the neighborhood kids adored. For me, it was therapy. I work from home as a freelance web developer. My days can be pixelated and lifeless. My garden was where I unplugged. But apparently, Brenda thought breathing was a violation. She'd always had a problem with my yard. At first, it was just sideways glances and passive-aggressive comments at HOA meetings. Some residents seemed to forget that uniformity is key to preserving property values, she'd say, locking eyes with me. I ignored her, figuring her soul was allergic to color. But this fine made it official. She'd declared war on greenery. What made it worse was knowing Brenda targeted others too. My neighbor, Mrs. Chun, got fined last month for hanging small wind chimes in her backyard, chimes barely audible from the street. Another neighbor received a warning for installing solar path lights deemed too contemporary. Brenda ran the HOA like her personal kingdom. No one confronted her. She was relentless, always quoting obscure bylaws, always CCing the entire board. So, I did what any self-respecting gardener would do. I raged to my best friend, Sam. "You should turn your house into a jungle and charge people to see it," he said. We laughed, then stopped, then laughed again because it sounded insane and perfect. Brenda wanted less green? Fine. She was about to get more green than she could ever imagine. That night, laptop open, cup of self-grown chamomile tea in hand, I began researching. Fast-growing tropical plants, bamboo, elephant ears, certain ferns, passion vines. I scoured the HOA bylaws. Nowhere did it specify a plant limit or ban themed landscaping. Vague phrases like, "must remain visually consistent with community aesthetics," were all she had, and her aesthetic was dead grass and beige vinyl. Mine was life. I sketched a new layout, maximizing vertical growth, creating pathways through plant walls, even planting small educational signs. I'd create a suburban jungle, a rebellion for everyone suffocated by HOA pettiness. The next morning, I posted in the community group chat, looking for large planters and trellises. Within hours, 10 replies. Turns out, Brenda had more enemies than friends. I looked at her yard next door manicured to within an inch of its life, 2 plastic gnomes, 1 wilting rose bush. She wanted a fight? I was about to plant one. I woke before sunrise, coffee in hand, my yard a blank canvas itching for rebellion. The HOA fine sat on my kitchen table like a dare. I wasn't just adding a few pots. I was building an immersive tropical ecosystem. I drafted a full blueprint in Illustrator, dense foliage walls, a vertical vine corridor, a mini waterfall area, even a carnivorous plant section. Winding trails, canopy archways, the works. The budget was daunting, but word of the find spread. People started dropping off planters, old garden benches, and used fencing, even exotic plants. A woman 2 blocks away brought a banana tree she couldn't keep. A high school biology teacher donated ferns. My yard became a community resistance project. I quietly started an underground network, jokingly named the Green Gorillas. Neighbors who'd clashed with Brenda joined, not just donating, but helping install irrigation lines, build trellises, and paint colorful plant markers. Drama leaf, HOA Thorn, Brenda Repellent. We laughed, bonded, and built. Every night, something new. A DIY misting system, hanging baskets, a pond liner from an old koi setup, repurposed pallets for vertical herb walls, solar lights. Within 2 weeks, my property transformed. The front yard was a rainforest floor of moss and ferns, giant elephant ears lining the walkway, vines reaching from porch to mailbox. The backyard, even better, bamboo fences, canopy-style trellises, butterflies, visiting birds. It was alive. Then, my first visitor, a stranger. A woman parked her SUV, introduced herself as a nature blogger who'd seen a neighbor's Instagram post. She spent 30 minutes photographing everything, gasping at the pond. That night, her post, the wildest front yard in town, went mini-viral. Comments flooded in. Where is this? Can we visit? I'd pay to walk through this oasis. Pay. That word echoed. So, I made a laminated sign. Welcome to Suburban Sanctuary. Self-guided tours available. $5 suggested donation. Funds to local green initiatives. I expected a few curious souls. I got a line of cars. Parents with kids, plant nerds, garden club members. One guy brought a drone. It was glorious. Brenda noticed. Her curtain surveillance hit peak levels. The next Monday, she marched across my yard, staying carefully on the paved path. You can't charge people. This is a neighborhood. I smiled, handed her a visitor waiver, and pointed to the laminated city code. Home-based occasional events allowed. No noise violations, no street blockage. I was compliant. She turned chili pepper red and left. The next day, an investigatory notice from the HOA. Potential unauthorized commercial activity. I laughed and filed it in a drawer labeled Brenda's Greatest Hits. I'd already clarified with the city, donation-based events on private property were legal. The city official even asked if he could bring his kids. While Brenda stewed, the sanctuary grew. I added an explorer's corner, a kid's scavenger hunt, a chalkboard for visitor comments. This place makes me feel human again, one read. It wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about joy, community, nature. But I knew Brenda would escalate. Things heated up. The sanctuary was thicker, taller. I added palm lookalikes and a fog machine for early morning tours. Weekend visitors were common. Then, a white city vehicle parked across from my house. 2 men, one in uniform, clipboard in hand. City code enforcement, responding to a complaint. Unauthorized business, unsafe structures, environmental hazards. Brenda, again. I invited them in, walked them through, pointed out structural stability, my DIY yet professional irrigation, child-friendly paths. George, one officer, was impressed. This place is like a theme park, man. I explained the donation model, showed my binder of documentation. They left smiling. 2 hours later, an email, no action necessary. Property within compliance. I framed it on my porch. Brenda wasn't done. The next day, pounding at my door. Her, and 2 other HOA board members. A formal notice, proposed HOA amendment to prohibit excessive ornamental landscaping, themed displays, home-hosted public events. Targeting me. I showed up to that week's HOA meeting early, with backup. Over 40 residents, some with signs. We love the sanctuary. Plants not fines. Make HOA chill again. Brenda, in beige and pearls, looked rattled. She launched into a tirade about community standards. Then Mrs. Rodriguez, an elderly widow, stood up. Leo's yard is the only thing that makes this place feel alive. Others followed, parents praising the educational aspect, neighbors whose kids begged to visit, a couple whose house value increased. When Brenda called for a vote, the motion was crushed, 42-3. The crowd clapped. Someone shouted, "Let it go, Brenda." Re-elections were next quarter. A campaign to oust current leadership was already forming. But Brenda needed to feel powerful. 3 nights later, a motion alert from my security camera. Her, in a hoodie, creeping into my yard with garden shears. Snipping a hanging basket, knocking over lavender, scissoring a handmade sign. Surreal. I called the police. They reviewed the footage, then knocked on her door. Flashlights, not quite handcuffs yet. Brenda screamed, sobbed, blamed teen vandals until they showed her the footage. Cited for trespassing, property damage, noise violation, for the pot hitting a wind chime. The next morning, I uploaded the video to the neighborhood Facebook group. No commentary needed. Wow, caught red-handed. Our HOA president, ladies and gentlemen. A TikTok remix with jungle drums appeared. The HOA board held an emergency meeting. Not to target me, but to vote Brenda out. She didn't show. Word was, she was visiting relatives for her mental health. That weekend, the sanctuary hosted a liberation tour. Free entry. Laughter, kids playing, a local band. I'd started with revenge. I had a movement. Then, a call from a local news station. An interview. The story aired. Sanctuary Rebellion. How one man turned HOA harassment into a green paradise. It went regional, then national. A morning show anchor joked, "I'd rather live in Leo's sanctuary than my HOA prison." My little sanctuary became a destination. The new HOA board helped coordinate parking. A neighbor made t-shirts. I survived the suburban sanctuary. Fined by Brenda, freed by Ferns. Sold out in 2 days. Sanctuary Fest was a triumph. Food trucks, music, workshops. Over 300 people. Someone brought a miniature therapy pig. Late that night, an email from a California landscaping startup. Your sanctuary project is genius. Considered scaling? A partnership proposal, customizable neighborhood oasis kits. I'd be the creative lead. I nearly dropped my tea. HOA target to horticultural tycoon. I named the concept Havenscapes. Slogan, grow joy where rules once ruled. Of course, Brenda made one last appearance. A friend messaged, "Bro, isn't this your HOA, Brenda?" She's here, as a property standards consultant. Sure enough, new neighborhood, same rigid playbook. I emailed that HOA board, politely attaching the security footage and her court citation. Before you let her consult, you should know how her last one ended. Within 48 hours, she was fired. Gone. Back home, the sanctuary only grew. An elderly man sketching flowers told me, "I live alone. I haven't been this happy in years." Another woman said her autistic son found peace among the plants. It wasn't about Brenda anymore. What started as a stubborn stand had grown into a community destination. Neighbors started their own themed gardens. The Havenscapes collaboration launched DIY jungle kits. My face was on posters. Fame was weird, but the message was worth it. An invitation to a community eco-conference. Panel, Resilience Through Rebuilding. I shared my story. Q&A, what would you have done differently? I looked at the smiling, nodding crowd. I would have gone bigger sooner. A young couple approached, wanting to replicate my success despite their brutal HOA. I handed them a Havenscapes kit. Don't ask if it's worth it, I said. Ask if you're willing to outgrow them. Then, a viral post. Another town, new HOA policy, suspiciously familiar. Footer, policy developed in consultation with B. Hollingsworth. Brenda. The internet did my work. My videos, the mugshot, the sanctuary photos. That HOA apologized, suspended the policy. I just posted a photo of a vine-covered gate. Some gardens outlast storms. My home became a case study. One of the former HOA board members who'd voted with Brenda came to me. "I'm glad we lost. I never knew I needed this." The best moment, though, was a small, handwritten note tucked under a rock. "Thank you for reminding us that one person can make a place feel alive." These days, I start every morning with coffee under the bamboo canopy. Sometimes, I wonder, what if I'd just paid the $500? What would have happened to this street, these people, the joy we grew? And what would have happened to me? So, I ask you honestly, if your piece got fined, would you fight for it, or would you let the garden wilt?